Tonight, can Batman survive when his entire rogues gallery suddenly becomes swole? Can Legion introduce characters in a way that doesn't completely confuse me? And most importantly, does Deadman get to have a three-way? All that and more on this week's episode of the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 8 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I have nothing to say for this part. Genuinely and truly, it has been a genuinely quiet week. I've sat here and I've thought about it and there's nothing. There's not any interesting new comics. There's not any things that happened to me personally this week that are worth sharing. It's just 13 number 2s and a new number 1, Legion Secret Origin. I hope they explain how the future got so goddamn confusing, but we'll get there when we get there. I even looked what happened this week, October 26th, back in 2011 to DC Comics. And I mean, there were some creative changes announced, or at least rumored. New York Comic Con was coming up soon, but honestly, nothing. There's just nothing happening this week. Silence. So, I'm not going to waste any more of your time because your time is my time and my time is precious. So, October 26, 2011, DC Comics released such popular books as the number 2 issues of Batman the Dark Knight, Superman, Green Lantern, New Guardians, Aquaman, The Flash, The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Men, The Savage Hawkman, All-Star Western, Blackhawks, Voodoo, Teen Titans, Vampire, and Justice League Dark. Additionally, as I said before, issue number 1 of Legion Secret Origins is dropping, so we're going to check that out as well. But I'm not gonna beat around the bush on this one. Let's just jump right into it with the non-Christopher Nolan version of The Dark Knight. Batman, The Dark Knight number 2, written by Paul Jenkins, art by David Finch. Both of them have plotting credits. Where we left off last time, Batman was storming through Arkham, which was having an outbreak, and he came across a super huge, roided out One-Face instead of Two-Face. I'm only going to call him Two-Face, though, because there's no way I'm going to be able to mentally change that. So we open up this issue. Batman is talking about, I'm not afraid of death. Maybe I'm afraid of living, but definitely not afraid of pain, as Two-Face is wailing on him. It's not even a fair fight. And Two-Face starts, as he's beating the crap out of Batman, monologuing about I had my fear taken away, and soon the entire world will, and fear is the only thing that stops people from doing things, so everyone is going to be blah, blah, blah. As he's talking, blood starts pouring from his eyes. He passes out, and Batman's like, cool, that worked out. So Batman meets up with Jim Gordon on top of GCPD. And they just talk about what happened. 37 injured, 7 critical, 15 dead, with Batman almost being number 16. A bunch of inmates were injected with whatever it was, and they're loose out in the city. Apparently, some of them say they saw a white rabbit. Batman questions this, and Gordon writes it off as a common visual motif among abduction victims. Who would have guessed? Yeah, maybe in this town, just assume that it is an actual white rabbit. That seems like the more proper thing. Batman asks if anyone saw a girl, and Jim's like, dude, are you kidding? No one saw it. Batman, look, I gotta talk to you. Things have been really tough for me lately. This going down on my watch. I just almost got kicked out as commissioner because of the internal affairs guy. The only reason I'm around is because I pulled some strings, and I don't really have any friends around because everything's just kind of going bad all the time, and you're really my only friend, Batman, and I really need to talk to you right now. And then Batman disappears as Jim turns around. Because he's a dick like that. So then we get a bunch of stuff. Then we get a scene. He's driving in the Batmobile. And he tells Alfred, all right, so we got to go track down all these broken out inmates who are now roided out monsters like One-Face. So who's probably behind this? Scarecrow, Hugo Strange? And he's like, well, I'll analyze the toxin. But when they analyze it, it comes back. It's Scarecrow, but it's been heavily modified, and Scarecrow was last seen in Arkham, so it could be, could not be. It's unclear. Batman also tasks Alfred with trying to track down the girl in the White Rabbit outfit. And I love Alfred's line here. A half-naked girl in white lingerie. No doubt the World Wide Web is replete with such images. Master Bruce, I shall do my utmost to sort through them all. Love that. And even Batman does. He gives a little smirk afterwards. So then Alfred tells him he has a little bit of Bruce Wayne work to do, a couple meetings that he cancels. And then he gets to a dinner with Miss Jana Hudson, the girl from the last issue. And he's like, actually, you know what? Keep that one on, because that feels plot relevant. So then we start seeing all around Gotham, all the things that are happening with these inmates. You got Damian and Dick Grayson fighting the ventriloquist. They apparently broke Scarface, his little doll, and so he tosses it aside, grabs the corpse of a GCPD member, like shoves his hand into his spine and starts using him as a new puppet because he's also huge and whited out. And even at this point, Damian's like, oh, we're going to need some backup. Speaking of backup, literally every other Bat book. You've got Batgirl fighting Victor Zsasz. You've got the Birds of Prey fighting Clock King. And if that wasn't a deep enough cut for you, you got Batwoman fighting Cavalier, which for those who don't know is just a dude who went to the Ren Fair. And then we cut back to what Batman's doing. He went to Gotham Hospital, and he's there with Two-Face, who everyone else apparently got brain damage from this thing. He's the only one who's still sane enough to talk. And Batman's like, all right, where's the girl? Who is she? What'd she do? What's the White Rabbit significance? And Two-Face is like, are you sure I'm the one on drugs? Because you sound pretty crazy right now. Batman starts threatening him. And as he's shouting, he's like, oh, I'm going to take that drug off the streets, and you're never going to have your fix again. How does that sound, buddy? An orderly busts in. And then we just kind of leave that because they get a call that Joker has taken control of a subway train. And that's obviously priority number one if Joker's doing something. So he gets to the subway train. He's fighting off goons on top. There's a scene where one of the goons has got a gun trained on him, and a tunnel's coming up behind the goon. So Batman just does the Indiana Jones duck. Batman makes it inside the train and sees the Joker's already killed like a bunch of his goons, which he says, oh, this doesn't make any sense. And then he hears a voice saying like, oh, it never makes any sense, not until you get to the end, and by then it's useless. But isn't the chase better anyway? And you see that it's the White Rabbit girl. And he gives chase to her down the subway train. She seemingly can like freaking teleport because as soon as she closes one door, she's all the way down at the next one. But as she makes her way down to the very end of the train, Batman comes across the Joker, now roided out, and he says, how funny, a clown dressed in a bat suit. Too bad you're just the opening act. Wait till they get a load of me. And the White Rabbit is draped over muscular Joker, shirtless, as he's gripping a throne of his goons that he killed. It's so weird, you know? Like, that's really the best way to just... Like, this feels the most cinematic, I think is the best way to put it, is that it feels like it could be written to just be adapted straight for the screen. There's nothing that's really inherent about it being a comic book in that way. But it's strange in that why are we doing the muscular, like, why? Especially because I don't quote me on this because I can't remember, but I feel like this came out after the Arkham Asylum game. I think it started with Asylum City, right? Anyway, with muscular Joker being a thing, someone should have learned from someone that that's not a good thing to do, but whatever. No, it's so strange. And also that this is technically like a little mini event in that you've got the page of everyone else in Gotham dealing with this thing. And I mean everyone. The fact that all of the Bat books are involved in this, it's like, why the Dark Knight? I don't get it. Art-wise, I can't complain. Nothing's wrong with it. It's got some good shadows, some good stuff with it. It's fine. But no, it's just the writing. I gotta give it like a 5. Just because it's not bad. No one's like particularly out of character. It's just so like, really? Okay, I guess. But whatever. We'll pick up on issue 3 and see who else is on steroids the next time around. Superman number 2, written by George Perez, art by Jesús Merino. We last left off with, well, 2 endings. One with the giant fire monster came from space, and 2 with Clark Kent being shot down by Lois Lane. This issue picks up. Superman is in a lab of some sort, staring at some star charts. He's looking for Krypton, or at least just mourning the loss of it there. Some scientists are like, well, a lot of good that's going to do. It's all blown up. To which he hears General Sam Lane shows up. They apparently haven't talked in a while, but Lane's got some information about the fire monster, saying it definitely didn't come from space. It was definitely in the Earth. But why are you such a monster magnet? And also, quote here, what exactly is your current relationship with my daughter? So then we get a flashback to Lois and Clark talking as she moves into her new office for her new whatever job. And it's basically just a thing of like, hey Clark, look, we're still friends, we're still good, you're a great reporter, and we had a lot of fun times. The things are changing and things are going to be different, but you'll always be my friend. Maybe you could have like a little rivalry or whatever with some other girl, I don't know, so give her a name, Heather Kelly. And he's like, no, I'm not interested in that. And then Heather Kelly comes knocking and is like, hey Clark, there's apparently a homeless guy down on the subway tracks. You're into all that like public relations stuff. Could you want to deal with that story? And he's like, no, maybe you could do that. And then we cut back to the modern day, and Superman's like, I was just a headline to your daughter. We were never anything more, and now we're even less than that. And she's like, yeah, okay, my daughter's definitely not a reporter anymore. Sure, whatever. But he gets all pissed because basically he's just telling Superman, like, you're the reason these things are attacking. Get out of here. Here being either Metropolis or the planet if you can help it. But he flies off because he's got better things to do than argue with General Lane. We cut back to that homeless guy story, strangely enough. They're trying to do construction in the subway, and a guy's just squatting, so some cops come in to just get him out of there. And as he's running down the subway to escape, he comes across something which makes his eyes glow red. So then Superman's flying across the city. He's still not sure what he's going to do. And he hears, he's able to hear everything. And he hears down from the thing, ooh, look up in the sky. He's like, oh, that's normal. And then he hears, why isn't he reacting? It's coming right towards him. And Superman's like, what? Boom. And he's just hit. He can't see what did it. He has no clue what's going on. But everyone else is like, Jesus, what is that thing? It's beating up Superman. Superman's like, I can't see it. He uses his X-ray vision, his telescopic vision, his everything vision. Nothing. He can't get any glimpse of this thing. The monster is beating the crap out of him. Not like actually close to death or anything, but it's catching him off guard. He picks up Superman and throws him through one of those oh-so-common passenger blimps. And then Lois Lane and the news crew pick up on it, and they start filming everything. Superman's like, oh, geez, got to go save the plane. But, as he's going down, the monster's standing, right there, but it's just Superman flying. So he gets beat down by the monster again. Finally, he manages to get a glimpse, as he's being held against this building by the monster, of what the news camera is showing, on a screen, Times Square style. And he looks over at the screen, and he sees this monster from him, so he just throws a punch where the screen looks like it should be, and the monster goes flying. He goes, he saves the blimp, and he realizes, okay, so I can't see this thing, but literally everything else can. So he starts using his telescopic vision to, look in on screens all around Metropolis that are showing this fight, and he starts beating him up secondhand like that. Finally, he's got the monster down. He talks about it, and he's like, all right, where are you from? What do you know about me? You know anything about that last one who said something about Krypton? And the monster's talking for a second, and it does say alien stuff, but Superman swears he hears Krypton as he dissolves into dust and nothingness. And Jimmy comes in, and he's like, wow, what'd you do to it? It's gone. And he's like, it's actually gone? I can't tell. Is it actually gone? And then we cut back to Superman, I think in his fortress. I could be wrong. It's just a bunch of tech stuff. But he's next to his computers and stuff, just basically writing a journal. He's just he's just going like, well, here's what happened, and we still have investigations to do. And then he gets a call from Lois, and Lois is pretty much just dicking Clark around at this point. He's like, hi, Clark, I hope I didn't overstep our bounds of our friendship by anything I said earlier today. You've just been so moody lately. That's an actual quote, and I feel like that's just going to be the running theme. But anyway, he's like, hey, you don't have to face all this alone, you know. You're not Superman. We cut back to a hospital, and the dude who was in the fire from the first issue was still alive. He's comatose. He's barely got burns on any of his body. The homeless guy walks in, and they start talking in the alien text, and then the alien text like transforms mid-speech bubble to show that they are definitely saying something about Krypton. And that's where the issue ends off. Now, I told you about the fight, but I cannot explain to you how many speech bubbles are through this entire fight. Like, it's so many. He never shuts up. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm so much more used to the decompressed nature of comics that I get one like this, and it's like, I don't have an hour, guys. It's so long. But if it's like I just explained, okay, they get in a fight and then he looks at screens and then he's able to fight him actually for real. That's all that needs to like really be said. I'm okay with more characterization. I'm not saying, hey, don't tell me about like what's going on, but it's like he doesn't trust the artist to show anything at all. The one point is like all this is happening and Lois has to actually exclaim, it's almost as if Superman can't see him. Yeah, Lois, we got that. Thank you. I don't know. Art-wise, it is fine. I really don't have any problems with it. There's some good, like when he's standing off against Sam Lane, there's some good dichotomy between the two of them. The fight between the other monster, like it makes a good point in the art to make clear that Superman has no idea where this thing is. Like it's not a thing of, you know, where could it possibly be? Just going by the art alone, you're like, oh, geez, like I actually can't see him. So doubling down on why the text bubbles are unnecessary. I'm gonna give this one a 6. It's fine. It's a decent enough issue. It's definitely setting up the larger story as a whole, despite being kind of standalone. But it needs to just take your script and throw away every other page. And just let the artist handle that. That's all I need. It's just too wordy right now. But that is Superman number 2. Green Lantern New Guardians number 2, written by Tony Bedard, art by Tyler Kirkham, additional art by Harvey Tolibao. So we last left off, Kyle Rayner had just gotten a whole bunch of rings from the entire color spectrum, and all of the other people in the color spectrum showed up to kill him, or at least beat him severely for it. We got Star Sapphires, Yellow Lantern, Indigo Tribe, and Red Lanterns here. So this issue picks up right there. They're all still standing down each other. Red Lantern, Bleeze, she makes the first punch. She uses her Red Lantern blood napalm vomit thing towards Kyle. He dodges, but it's about to hit some civilians, so he makes a giant pipe to redirect it. And then he's like, all right, we're not doing this in the middle of a city. And he starts flying up. Arkillo, Yellow Lantern, grabs him, throws him down through the earth into a subway tunnel down beneath. And he's like, please don't let there be a train. And he looks up and there's a train. And he's like, of course there is. So Arkillo's translating, or the ring is translating Arkillo's just random yells and stuff. He's like, I will take this ring back. And Kyle's like, good, do it. I don't want it. And then Arkillo just goes on. He's like, Arkillo finds you weak, unlike Mongol of Warworld who tore out Arkillo's tongue. And then Arkillo roars, and it's disregard previous statement. But as he grabs the ring, it overloads and starts zapping Arkillo. Kyle brings down a steel beam and is like, all right, well, you know what? We're going to look back on this moment. You're still not going to laugh. As the train comes in and just splats Arkillo. It actually makes a splat noise. So he should be dead. Of course he's not. But cut back up. He gets up topside, and the Red Lantern is now encased in a stasis matrix that the Star Sapphire can make. Her name is Fatality. And she's like, look, the Red Lantern was only going to be a problem for all of us, so I just took her off the board. And now I'm going to do the same thing to you so I can get the rings back. So she encases Kyle inside of the stasis matrix. Indigo Tribe member comes up and tries to beat her, but she dodges out of the way. And he's like, oh, Fatality, that's weird for someone who's on the love spectrum. And he's like, oh, you know there's nothing more violent than a lover spurned. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so then they start hearing a pinging. And it's Kyle's ring, and his willpower's going up. It's like 89%, 96%, 99%. It's like, wait a minute, his willpower shouldn't be going up. And he bursts out at 110% power levels. And he's like, okay, well, that can only mean one thing. And in comes Blue Lantern, Saint Walker, who's giving, his power is hope. So he gives hope to Kyle, and they are just talking. They're like, okay, so we got to get out of here. We got to, because, again, this whole fight, I just want to go off planet. So they make like a rocket ship that just immediately takes off. And Sam Walker's like, are you sure you want to leave them in the city? He's like, nah, they're after me. They're not going to care about the city. But they start flying their way to Oa because they're like, all right, we need to ask the Guardians what's going on. Specifically Ganthet, my old buddy Ganthet, who nothing bad has ever happened to. And they both talk about how Ganthet's so cool and how he was basically Kyle's fairy godmother and how he established the Blue Lantern Corps. Along with Said, his wife, girlfriend, something? I don't know. Didn't read that part. But then St. Walker makes the observation. It's like, look, we need to know why these rings sought you because you got the orange ring. There's only one of those. And if you have it, that means its owner is dead. Cut back to the planet. All the other lanterns are down there, and they're like, okay. They free the Red Lantern. They say, we got to work together if we're going to get our rings back. So stow our own hostilities for each other. Let's just get the rings back together. And they realize that he's probably going to Oa because, of course, where else would he go? And the Star Sapphire is like, that's planet's off limits, though. And he's like, yeah, for Green Lantern, or for anybody. So says the Green Lanterns. We're not going to care about that, though. So they arrive on Oa. Kyle and Sam Walker, that is. And they barge into a meeting of all the Guardians, and the Guardians are all like, Kyle, how did you get so many rings? This is most unusual. And Kyle sees Ganthet in the back. He's like, Ganthet, thank God. Okay, screw these other Guardians. What's up, buddy? Been a while. I thought something happened to you. He's like, I am fine, Green Lantern. Everything is perfectly okay. He's like, oh, Ganthet, what did you do to Ganthet? And they're like, we just took away his emotions because they got in the way of him doing his job. And it's like, you lobotomized my friend? You suck. And Ganthet's like, it's okay. I'm all better now. I don't have any pesky emotions. So Kyle's getting a little bit pissed at that. But the Guardians just keep on going like, how'd you get the rings? How'd you get the rings? How'd you get your rings? And he's like, I don't know. I want the answers. I don't have them. I thought Ganthet would have them, but you lobotomized him. At that point, all the rings start doubling up on how Kyle's been chosen. And he's like, geez, I don't want this. The Guardians start like lunging for the rings, which looks really off, as they go onto Kyle's fingers. And he becomes not a White Lantern, but he has all of the emblems all over his body. He does have a white outfit, and he almost looks a little bit like villainy just because he's got a bunch of spikes and stuff coming up now. I don't know. But that's where we leave off with him gaining the power of every single Lantern Corps. I like this issue. I think it does a good job of furthering the plot. I think it does a good job of the changing stakes. Whereas last issue left off with Kyle against the people who were immediately there and he didn't know what was going on. He still doesn't know what's going on, but now the people who are immediately there, they've reconciled their force and now they're all after Kyle. And also he has a beef with the Guardians. But he now has Saint Walker on his side as well, because there's no way Saint Walker's going to be happy that the Guardians lobotomized Ganthet. So I like it. It's a good issue. Art-wise, it's very good. I don't have any complaints in that regard at all. The only thing is that I feel like the fight between Arkillo and Guy was a little bit confusing, but that's just because of tight paneling, not because of bad art within itself. But that's just me. I'm going to give this one a 7. It's very good. It's a solid read. It's not doing anything to blow my hair back yet. I do like the question it sets up with, is the Orange Lantern dead? Like, did you kill the Orange Lantern? And whatever's happening to you? And I'm sure we'll explore that moving forward. But yeah, no, 7. Solid read. I'm definitely looking forward to issue 3 next month. Aquaman, number 2, written by Geoff Johns, art by Ivan Reis. Where we last left off, Aquaman was deciding that he wanted to live on land permanently with Mera, and he was sick of Atlantis. And a couple fishermen out in a boat were being attacked by some sharp-toothed fish-looking monster things. We pick up with the sharp-toothed fish-looking monster things attacking the boat. They get on board, and they just start slaughtering these guys. They keep on chanting how they're food over and over and over again. The one guy says, like, what do you want? He's like, food. But he says it in a garbled up text speech that's translated for the benefit of us. At one point during this slaughter, like an alpha shows up, is the best way I can describe it. He's got like catfish whiskers. He's a bit more torn up from fights. And he sprays one of the guys with something out of his mouth to signify that this belongs to the alpha. Like it's specifically, no one else can touch it. It's just his. But after they're done slaughtering the entire boat, they look out at the coastline and see lights up on the horizon. They're like, oh, maybe that's more food. Let's go there. And, of course, we see that it's a dock. And on the dock is a little boy and his mother. And he's like, look, Mommy, it's Daddy's boat. Let's say hi. And, yeah, it's going to be tragic. So then we get a cut to Aquaman's home. And they're looking through photo albums, him and Mera. And there's a picture of Arthur skiing. And he's like, Aquaman was skiing? And Arthur points out that, like, yeah, when I was young, my dad took me, like, really far away from the ocean, trying to get, thinking that getting away from it would make things easier, but that clearly didn't work out. But, hey, now that we're on land, I guess you could try skiing too. And she's like, oh, I look forward to it. Then they see a picture in the photo album of someone standing next to Arthur and his dad. Mera makes a comment about it, but Arthur's like, that picture shouldn't be here. Unclear as to what it means, but it's set up. Then there's a knock on the door. There's a sheriff. He's screaming for help. Aquaman opens the door shirtless, and he's like, wow, okay, you look like Aquaman, but I can't tell because you're not wearing orange. He's like, I'm Aquaman. What do you want? Mera shows up next to him. He's like, oh, Mera, Aquawoman, he actually says. Aquaman, I thought you were a mermaid or something. He's like, no, I control water. She shows it off for everyone. And Arthur's like, okay, so what can we do for you? He's like, oh, yeah, right. Down the beach, a couple miles, there was a monster attack that came from the sea. You can talk to fish, right? So then we see the aftermath of what happened, and it's just a bloodbath on this dock. The ship crashed into it. There's just blood everywhere. Aquaman shows up. He's like, wow, you guys got Navy, you got Coast Guard, you got everybody here. I guess I'll see if I can help. Then apparently the real sheriff comes up because the guy who got Aquaman was actually just the deputy. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, Aquaman? You got Aquaman involved in this? And deputy's like, he saved my sister last year. I thought he could help. He's like, he's friggin' Aquaman, and we've got missing people. We have actual problems, and you called in Aquaman? And Aquaman's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna check things out if nobody minds. And so he does a scan of the water to see if there's anything he can like feel out there, and he doesn't find anything. There's no marine life, period. There's no fish at all. And he's like, all right, that's weird. But as he's doing that, they find something in the water, they pull it out, and they claim that it's some sort of a cocoon. At least that's what it looks like. And as they pull it out, it starts doing that same garbled text of the food, food, food. Aquaman can hear it, and he's like, all right, fight time. And all the sharp-toothed fish monster things come out of the water and start fighting everyone, eating everyone. They unload their weapons. Aquaman says, like, oh, I don't recognize them, so let's go for it. And they start fighting, him and Mera. At one point, one of them tries biting Aquaman, and the teeth just shatter on his armor, so he's clearly not in any real trouble. But then the Alpha shows up, and he grabs Aquaman's trident right out of his hand. And he does the spit thing on Aquaman to claim, like, okay, he's not to be eaten because this food comes home to the trench is the last scene. So they're bringing Aquaman back to the trench. I like it. It's a good issue. It's forwarding the plot more than I think the first issue did. The first issue was just setting up, hey, Aquaman's actually kind of badass. Whereas this one's like, okay, we're dealing with the trench. So we're moving forward. And I think it's good pacing overall. It's only really like 4 scenes if you really build it down to that. You have the scene on the boat, the scene where they're looking at the photo album, the scene where they're doing the investigating, and the scene with the fight. So it's good pacing overall for just a normal size comic issue. I have 0 faults with the art. It's fantastic throughout. It's so detailed and so well done. Coloring does a lot of that as well. And I guess I'll just say the colorist is Reis, which I guess is brother or something to Ivan Reis. It's spelled the same. But no, it's very good. I'm definitely looking forward to continuing Aquaman. And yeah, it's such a simplistic issue. I don't have a lot to say about it, but it is very good. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7.5. If it did something more amazing with Aquaman, I might bump that up, but it is still a very solid issue, and I'm looking forward to more. The Flash, number 2, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato. We last left off with Barry chasing after his friend Manuel and turning into the Flash, and then stumbling across Manuel, being accosted by a couple dozen clones of himself. So, yeah, I'll pick up here. And by the way, it's going to get really confusing with clones and stuff, so I'm just going to skip ahead and say the clones as a whole are called Mob Rule, and Manuel is just Manuel. So, we start off with Barry saying, like, all right, you got 3 seconds to let go of Manuel. And Mob Rule's like, oh yeah? Okay, what are you going to do? And he counts to 3 and just starts wrecking everybody with their own weapons, just beating them up, taking them out. And Mob Rule's like, oh, okay, that was fast. But you still can't be everywhere at the same time. Because we got Barry Allen's lady friend, Iris West, hostage, and we're not going to tell you where she is. Here's a phone. It'll ring once we're nice and far away, but you have to stay right here. Count to 1,000. Super slow, like. So they make their escape with Manuel. Flash is forced to stand there because he can't let Iris, or I guess a hostage in general, but Manuel's a hostage, so no, just Iris, die. And then phone rings. As soon as he gets her location, he's there, he's checking on her. He's like, you okay? You good? She's like, yeah. He's like, cool, I got to take care of some stuff, bye. So he runs off and talks to Dr. Elias, and he's like, hey, so I just need to know a bit more about, like, the limit of my powers here, because I feel like, you know, I could be better. So Dr. Elias runs a test on him. He has Barry run on a treadmill, and the treadmill just explodes. But he gets some good brain scans and stuff like that, and he basically tells Barry that the Speed Force, which is Barry's term, Barry came up with it, the Speed Force is affecting Barry's body, but not his brain. He still can't perceive as fast as he can. So he's stuck being just a little bit slower so that he's able to, you know, not run into people at Mach 5 billion. So he needs to be able to let the Speed Force up into his brain and perceive the world faster. Barry's thinking about that up on a rooftop. Patty Spivak comes up and he's like, hey, so that body that was thrown through the plate glass window, like, it had a bunch of scratches and stuff when we picked them up, but they all healed. They have rapid cell regeneration, which theoretically could be used to clone entire bodies, aka the entire plot of our thing. So as Patty's going over this whole thing and saying how Manuel had, like, an intelligence background and there were some missing files, blah, 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 Barry's zoning out because he is starting to perceive, like, everything. He has, like, a spider sense moment from, like, the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man where he's just everything around him in super slow motion. And he's like, okay, all right, so this is happening. Patty's like, hello, are you listening to me? He's like, yeah, no, totally, but I got to go talk to Iris West, bye. Which, of course, she takes well. He goes and talks to Iris, basically saying, like, what do you know about Manuel? You got to give me some information here. He's like, well, sure, but first you give me information on the Flash. He's like, damn it, Iris, just give me the information. And then as she's talking to him, he does it again. He zones out. But this time he sees that there's going to be a robbery taking place. And he sets up this like Rube Goldberg sort of thing where he works through all the possibilities of like, okay, this could happen, and then this could happen, and this could happen. And then he sets up this whole thing so that he doesn't even really have to interfere at all. It's just he lets things play out as cause and effect would happen. So he sets it up, and meanwhile, this whole time, Iris is talking about the history of Manuel. It's like he didn't start out a bad apple, deep cover operative for the CIA, and then he was officially, quote, killed in action 16 months ago. But he got an unofficial copy of his passport, and she passes it off to Flash. And then they start talking about how they dated once, and how Iris kind of wants him to ask her out again. So there's, some personal stuff, but they don't sit on that at all, because Iris has apparently got a interview with the most dangerous inmate at Iron Heights Prison, whoever that may be. And again, this whole time we see the Rube Goldberg working out, and how the robber was foiled, and how his getaway car is all tied up by a tow truck. So anyway, Flash takes the passport. He goes to everywhere in the passport looking for any sort of information. We get a flashback to how they were good friends and how he went off to do his own thing after they grew up. He gets to a pig farm, and he manages to remember something about how Manuel said that the whole place stinks of pigs. So this is definitely a place where Manuel was. But then we see that in the flashback, as Manuel's on the phone with Barry, how he's kidnapped by the clones again, and the clones are like, okay, well, we're all dying here. We're all literally falling apart, and you're the solution to our problem. And then everything all happens at once, where there's the interview at the Iron Heights, them getting some stuff in the investigation at the police center. Dr. Elias is seeing something on Barry's brain scans. And then all at once, a button is pushed by Mob Rule. And as far as I can tell, an EMP goes off above Central City. And everything just goes black, and there's one panel of Iris being taken hostage, or being kidnapped, I should say, at Iron Heights. But the main thing that we end on is a plane is literally falling out of the sky, and Barry is just looking up at it like, hell. And that's where we leave. I like this issue. I very much do. I think it adds a nice little bit to the Flash, though this definitely feels more like a year one sort of story than it does 5 years in, as it's supposed to be. So, I don't know. It's a little bit weird in that regard. But overall, I think they're doing a good job setting up Manuel. The flashbacks do a good job of, they were buddies, they were friends, they grew up together more or less. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about Iris at this point, because she's got the Lois Lane thing going on, but she's also not it doesn't seem like Barry likes her at all, which is fine, but Iris definitely is into him, so I just hope they don't do some weird, soap opera love triangle with the two of them and Patty. I don't know. That's the only thing that I'm worried about. Overall, art fantastic, writing fantastic. It does a great job at, Francis Manapul does a great job at, when it comes down to the Flash, vision, the Speed Force thinking, does a fantastic job at getting that across of what exactly he's thinking through at light speed. It's a fantastic job. It's a masterclass. Overall, I'm going to give this an 8. It's extremely well done. I would highly suggest reading it. If I had any qualm with it at all, it's that they're very much spoon-feeding, or drip-feeding, I should say, in that I still don't feel like we've gotten enough to make any sort of thing of okay, what exactly is happening with Manuel? But I'm sure that's going to happen over the next 6 issues. So no big rush. Very much looking forward to issue 3. The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Men, Issue 2, written by Gail, Simone, and Ethan Van Sciver, art by Yıldıray, Çınar. We last left off with the boys being attacked at their school, then becoming 2 separate firestorms, and then fusing into one bigger firestorm named Fury. We pick up with Fury, and he is there with Tanya, just this hulking behemoth in front of her. Tanya comes up and is like, Ronnie, Jason, is that you guys? And as soon as she touches him, she gets some sort of weird vision thing, which will be explained later. But she collapses on the ground, and Fury's like, all right, move or burn. Just get out of here. He's like, there are killers. You can't just leave. What am I supposed to do? And he's like, move or burn. Meanwhile, the killers are inside. They're like, okay, so we've got 2 new firestorms. He's calling someone. We've got 2 new firestorms. One of our people is like blue right now. We need you to send in this like special agent. And he's like, are you sure? And it's like, yes, we're about to like die. No doubt we're about to die. So they try to still be a little quippy with each other, but the boss is like, no, the quips are done. This is serious now because that thing is going to kill us if it sees us. Oh, darn, it's seen us. So they start running away from Fury. Meanwhile, we cut inside of Fury, and there's Jason and Ronnie. They're talking to each other, and they're able to like look out of Fury's eyes and see that Fury's going to kill these guys. Like, that is absolutely what he's aiming to do. Fury already cuts off one of their arms, and we get a brief little explanation as to like, okay, so this thing that somehow I still have in this different dimension, it is the thing that held the Firestorm protocol. It's a magnetic thing that bosons and blah blah blah. And Ronnie's like, dude, none of whatever for all that. None of it's in one ear out the other. Where are we right now? It's like, well, we're inside of a walking nuclear meltdown that's trying to kill those guys. As they're trying to make their getaway, Fury's literally throwing school buses at them. And Ronnie's like, can we stop him from killing people? And he's like, I don't know. Jason has no clue how to control it. But as Fury's about to land the finishing blow, Tanya comes up. He's like, Jason, Ronnie, if you're in there, the police are here. We gotta go. Also, please don't kill me. And Fury grabs Tanya and flies off. All the mercenaries call into their boss, I suppose. Her name is Zither. Sure, she wears like a half Phantom of the Opera mask, so just give you a visual. She's like, yeah, we need out. You can still send in the special team. They go by the name of the Hyenas. And don't worry, we'll take care of all of the mess here. And they literally blow up the entire school. Then we see inside of Fury, and Jason explains exactly what happened. Professor Martenstein, smartest man in the world. Governments would spend billions just to spy on him to try to recreate his stuff. And he had a private chat room with a bunch of the brightest students that he ever had, Jason being one of them. And then he disappeared for a long time. And then Jason got a message, along with a bunch of other people, saying that he found God inside the atom and he could like end wars with it. But they have to be very careful, and they're going to have to sacrifice a lot for this. And Ronnie, all he hears from this is, you knew this was going to happen, and yet our coach and our teammate is dead, so this is your fault. They start fighting inside of the whatever realm they're in. Fury lands, sets down Tanya, and then the 2 firestorms separate out and then transform back into Ronnie and Jason. And Ronnie's like, hey, okay, I'm done. I'm going home. Bye. And Jason's like, I'm sorry, you can't go home. Like, these people... they're from, and this is the part that gets kind of a bit off, they're from the real governments. Like, the governments you think of, doesn't even matter. Everything comes down to, like, economic clusters of, like, who benefits from what monetarily. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But they're already coming up with a cover story for why the 3 of us are gone. They're already, like, interrogating our families. And if we ever see them again, they will definitely kill them. So we got to go on the run now. Tanya makes it clear that when she touched Fury, she saw a vision of the future, but it's like a nuclear winter. The moon is blood red, and it has the Firestorm symbol carved into it, and everything felt like the end of the world. Ronnie makes a passing mention about how one time he fell asleep and woke up to the emergency broadcast system on, and he thought it was the end of the world, but, it wasn't. And then we see exactly what Jason was saying with the cover stories, how they've already orchestrated that the entire exploding at the school was a terrorist plot by Jason, Ronnie, and Tanya as some sort of like retribution for something. And then we see this special team coming called the Hyenas. We'll get to them. So it turns out that Jason and Tanya and Ronnie all passed out because, it was kind of a big day. But they overslept, and a helicopter's flying in, holding the Hyenas. The Hyenas take some drugs that get them really high. And their whole thing is that they just are so high that they're just laughing constantly. That's their thing. And Ronnie's like, all right, whatever, I'm going to turn myself in. He's like, they're not here to arrest us. They're here to kill us. And if they can't kill us, they'll at least kill Tanya. So they have to transform into Firestorm. They do a whole Power Ranger thing of Firestorm, activate. And they start fighting at him. Jason has enough wherewithal of okay, I'm going to turn your gun into roses. He knows the chemical process to do that. Whereas Ronnie, not so aware, but he does have his sports prowess. So when Jason gets shot by one of their, I want to say they're guns, but they're firing off green shots, so it makes me just think laser beams. But when he gets shot, Ronnie comes in. He's like, I know how to do fire. And he makes fire and then just starts beating up all the guys. But eventually they get Jason down on the ground, and Ronnie's held at gunpoint. And they're like, all right, how is Firestorm going to get out of this one? I like this issue very tentatively. It's a solid piece of moving the story forward. It dealt with the Fury thing. It dealt with them turning into Firestorm of their own volition. It basically got the ball rolling. It's starting it off and being like, all right, here's what the plot's going to be. And I'm down with that. Art-wise, it's fine. It's nothing super great. It feels pretty stock standard overall. The coolest thing about it is Fury, but even then, once they're in the middle of a fight, it's only cool when he's just standing there next to Tanya, because it's got a Hulk next to a normal person feel. As soon as they start the fight scene, it's all right, well, he's just a giant thing, so whatever. Overall, I'm going to give this a 6. It's fine. It's good. I'm still waiting for them to do something a bit more. It's very slowly growing the friendship between Jason and Ronnie, and I'm definitely looking forward to that, but it is very slow. So we'll see how long that actually ends up taking. But as for now, it's fine, and I suppose we'll continue on with the Fury of Firestorm next month. Hawkman number 2, written by Tony S. Daniel, art by Philip Tan. We last left Hawkman in the grips of Morpheus, who is draining out his life force or his nth metal or something. And we pick up pretty much exactly in that same spot. Hawkman is being drained of his nth metal. Morpheus is like, this burns, but it's a good burn. I love nth metal. And as he's about to drain Hawkman, Hawkman lets out this giant fire energy blast on Morpheus, which actually does do some damage. As he manages to get Morpheus off, he's like, all right, let's go. He gets his armor back on him, time to fight. And then Morpheus tries to teleport away, maybe? At least that's what Hawkman thinks, but it's kind of not expanded on, because then immediately Morpheus is like, oh, no. I didn't try to teleport away. I've got such new powers, because apparently neither Hawkman nor Morpheus have any idea how to work this nth metal. Completely mystery to them. But Morpheus is the most powerful being alive and the most advanced species. So he's going to figure it out a hell of a lot sooner than Hawkman, and then he will be unstoppable. So he's fighting Hawkman. Hawkman, he feels like something's wrong, like he can't fly properly, and something's just wrong with his body. The nth metal starts receding back inside of him. And Morpheus is like, ooh, the nth metal's giving up on you. And I could kill you now, but you have something to offer me later. But not now. Goodbye. And he just flies off, and then Hawkman's left standing there in the rubble like, seriously? All right. Cut to the Non-Lethal Alternative Studies headquarters in Manhattan. It's some government, site with, military constructs or whatever. It's run by a Dr. Kane, whose entire thing is a program of basically he's trying to create neural interrupters so that he can just wipe on the battlefield, he can wipe enemies' minds and just blank them out for a bit. But he's doing it on chimps, so he's kind of a dick. And the one guy even makes the thing of like, oh yeah, so we exposed the chimps to this thing. It's like, that chimp looks dead. And it's like, well, yeah, he's kind of dead. But the men in black are like, yes, of course. You've done a good job, because it's just government goons just walking around for expository sake. His assistant comes up. Her name is Ascana. And he's like, oh, you have a phone call. Phone call basically says how they lost track of the subject, and they're going to be getting it back soon. Whoever the subject is, whether it's Carter or Morpheus. Then we see Carter Hall. He's waking up in the hospital. He's surrounded by like his entire alien archaeology team. Particularly a woman named Emma, who's the daughter of the main lead scientist, Dr. Ziegler, I believe his name is. I don't know. But they're like, hey, okay, so there were a bunch of dead bodies there. We don't know how you survived. You kind of just disappeared after you charged into that alien. But the police are here. Here's a picture of the symbols that were on the ship, because the ship thing is long gone, but I got some pictures, so you can try to decipher them off of that. And Carter's like, okay, all right, lot to handle. Go ahead and tell the police they can come in. I'll talk to them. And Emma's like, oh, just tell them everything. What do you have to hide? Carter immediately makes a dash for the window. The nth metal's telling him, like, go, 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 go. So he jumps out. The nth metal comes back out, protects him, and he gets away. Cut to somewhere over Manhattan. Morpheus is flying, but he feels that the nth metal inside of him is weakening him. He's get pulled down to the ground, and we get this weird lore dump of apparently he's a Xenusian, and the only thing that can get inside of his head is Vexaphons, which are a race that they made go extinct during their last war eons ago. But the last Vexaphon is here, looking like a discount Slender Man. And he says, like, oh, I'm not here to kill you, Morpheus. I'm here to protect you. My name is Waker, and I'm going to save your life. Carter arrives back at his apartment, and he's being evicted. The landlord's like, dude, you're 3 months behind on rent, and you've caused us untold damages. And Carter just pulls out a box of what I can only assume is, like, gold. And he's like, here, this will cover all of it. And the landlord's like, yep, cool, awesome. All right, well, we've wrapped up that plot point. Goodbye now. So Carter's back in his apartment. He's looking over the photos of the symbols, and they're completely alien. But over time, he's slowly able to get it, not through, like, his job, but, like, they're alien symbols, and they're just making sense to him. He's able to just put it together. He's like, oh, this was a prison ship, and he was on his way to be executed. And then there's a knock on the door. It's Emma, the daughter of the main scientist guy. She's brought food and basically just wants to talk. It's like, so, you want to tell me what's going on with you, Carter? Because in the middle of a fight where everyone else ran away, you just ran into the alien. And basically, Carter knows where this is going. She tries to kick Emma out. And Emma makes the conclusion that Carter is not who he says he is. She comes to the conclusion of government agent, but, close enough. So then we cut back to the non-lethal whatever. Morpheus is tied up to some machine, and Waker's like, oh, don't worry, we'll save your life. And then Dr. Kane comes in and is like, oh, yeah, but we're not, because keeping him alive is costly, and getting an autopsy is pretty much all I need. So they start putting him in intense pain for whatever reason. Waker's like, no, please, you can't kill him. And then the assistant grows this crazy, like, black demon arm and rips out the entire torso of the Waker. And then Dr. Kane's like, all right, now we can proceed with our true mission, the extinction virus. And that's where we leave off. This book answered like one of my questions and then introduced like 8 more, especially the part with the whole Vexaphon Xenusian rivalry, because now it just seems like they're both dead. What was the point? I don't understand that part. Why did we get this whole thing on like, oh yes, the last Vexaphon and he's dead? Well, glad we had that. I don't know where this book is heading yet. It keeps on swerving in a bunch of different directions. It's not bad though, and I cannot express how good the art is. It's got this painterly style to it. Philip Tan, fantastic. I don't even know, is he colored? There's a couple colorists, a whole studio of colorists apparently, Imaginary Friends Studios. But no, it's a fantastic art. Writing wise, I don't know where it's going, and that's fine because Hawkman is just a bit of a mystery within himself. So as long as I'm not feeling lost, which I'm not, I feel that this is intentional, and it's very well done at allowing me to keep track of everything. The fact that I can even remember the name Morpheus, A+ on that. because they don't really re-say it that often. So I'm going to give this one a 6.5. It's very good. I'm very much looking forward to future issues of Hawkman. I just hope that eventually we get settled into which plot we're actually going to stick with instead of swerving wildly in every direction. All-Star Western #2, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat and Jordi Bernet. We last left off Dr. Amadeus Arkham and Jonah Hex had attended a party of the rich and powerful and discovered that pretty much all of them were members of this evil cult group thing that is sacrificing prostitutes around town. So we pick up this issue with them back at the house of Arkham, and he's like, okay, so all of them are in on this thing? Like, how could all of these people be in on it? And Jonah explains, look, they're all rich and powerful. Like, they're going to move in, they're going to take control, and they're going to do it through weird means. It happens all the time. Amadeus comes to this realization that he may have seen those before, and something about a consecrated affiliation, someone said. He goes and gets a book and discovers that an old murder suspect made mention of a dark faith or a religion of crime in like a crime Bible. So that's the current working theory, but it's going to have to be put on hold because at Arkham's home, a whole bunch of men with guns wearing sacks over their heads show up, and Jonah's like, all right, well, the shooting's about to begin. So Jonah steps outside with a shotgun and his pistol, says evening, and then all hell opens up for like 5 straight pages. It's just boom, 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 bang, 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 bang. One guy, he's riding on a horse. He has a lantern. Jonah shoots the lantern, explodes all over him. He catches on fire. And after like 5 pages, everyone except for Jonah and Arkham are down on the ground, writhing in pain and or dead. One of them, who's groaning, begging for help, Jonah steps up and says, like, tell me what I want to know and I'll help you. And he explains, Jonah and Amadeus are the only ones that are a threat to their plan. And yes, it is the crime Bible. They have their base set up on Blackgate Island, the place where they want to build that new prison. And he's like, all right, cool, thanks for the help. And Jonah shoots him in the head and just says, I helped him die faster. He was already dead. So they say, all right, we got to tell the chief of police. Jonah makes the point that no, either he's already in on it or there's nothing he can do. Like, they're going to kill him if he finds out. So we have to do this on our own. And Amadeus is like, what do we do about it? And Jonah, only focusing on the messed up side of his face, says, we kill them all. So then it goes to Blackgate Island, and the police commissioner, I think, Cromwell, I can't remember what his exact position was, but he wanted Hex out of town. He's being held hostage, and they're basically just gloating around him, just expositing for the sake of him and the audience, saying like, yes, we do have a religion of crime, and we are the followers of Cain from the Bible, and we've already killed Jonah Hex because we've sent a dozen men. But, oh, yes, I suppose Jonah Hex is hard to kill, so we'll have to double check on that. But regardless, he will die, and so will you, chief of police. I guess he's chief of police. And then they talk about how they're just going to take over the town and make it a basically their version of the Vatican. Like, Christians have the Vatican, the religion of crime will have Gotham. Which, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty safe bet. So they all explain their plans and how this one war hero guy is going to be the new chief of police because he's going to run on public safety terms. But in reality, they'll be running things from behind the curtain. All the rich guys make their exit, leaving the chief of police to be killed in a sacrificial manner. Amadeus and Jonah show up. They see that he's there. And the dude who's doing the torturing, or at least about to set up the torturing, is like, no, in fact. And then this big muscly dude comes in, knocks down Hex, starts just beating the crap out of him. Arkham tries to make an attempt to like pull him off, but of course he's just a weaselly little psychiatrist, so he's not able to do anything. And the last page is the big muscly dude's got Jonah Hex by the hair, and the other guy saying, all right, kindly relieve Mr. Hex of his head. And that's where we leave off. Pretty short issue just because that fight scene took up so much of it, but it was... I remember last issue saying how Arkham would not shut up. Like, every single panel was just him making some assessment about Hex. I'm glad that didn't carry over. I'm very happy that we just got through a fight scene, and it's just a fight scene. We didn't have to have Arkham being through the whole thing of like, he fights like a madman, controlled by the devil himself. I don't care. I don't care. Stop it. Art-wise, it's fitting. I wouldn't say it's particularly fantastic art. Nothing is jumping out at me as like, wow, that looks incredible. It does a very good job with the fight scene, though. The action's very well done. But on its own, especially for this whole round table thing where the villains are just talking, it's just stock standard art. But it fits. It's very grimy and gritty and dark. So I have no qualms with the art either. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 7. It's a very solid read. I would highly suggest reading it. It seems that the main thread, of course, is going to be the religion of crime, crime Bible, such like that. I am curious how they're going to wrap it up without just killing literally every rich person in Gotham, which who knows, they might. But no, it's going to be an interesting story, and I look forward to see how it's going to be wrapped up. Blackhawks, number 2, written by Mike Costa, art by Graham Nolan and Trevor McCarthy, on layouts and finishes, respectively. We last left off with Kunoichi, one of the Blackhawk agents, realizing that she has, they call them nanocytes. They're just basically nanobots inside of her body that are doing something or another. This issue picks up. They're out on a mission. I think this might have actually happened in the last issue, but the prison that was holding a bunch of baddies basically got blown up, and now they're going to investigate and deal with it. We are introduced to our final agent, I believe, Lady Blackhawk. She did not make an appearance last issue, and she's just talking, saying like, all right, so we're not allowed to hold prisoners as Blackhawks. We're just a UN military group, so we have to send them off to actual militaries. And when they invariably let these super baddies out because they can't deal with them themselves, then we show up and deal with it again. So the dude who's in charge, I believe Lincoln, I'm still struggling with all the names here. Lincoln is still talking to the UN guy, and he's like, hey, so maybe amend our agreement so that we can hold prisoners, because that would be really helpful. He's like, dude, I'm here because you broke your protocol and got seen by the public. There are videos on YouTube of Kunoichi just there, and your symbol, and you messed up. And he's like, look, we did protocol perfectly. Kunoichi accidentally breached protocol, or breached the perimeter, and we had to go get her. Protocol was followed. Can't you guys just delete this thing off the internet? And the UN guy's like, do you know how the internet works? Meanwhile, we get back to this prison that blew up. They're doing some scans and stuff. Kunoichi's wearing some extra gear so that whatever's up with her is contained. Lady Blackhawk's not picking up any sort of radiation, which is strange because an explosion this size should be somewhat radioactive. But she has her eyes in the sky scanning for any satellites that may have passed overhead in case it was like an orbital strike. But that's going to have to wait because a giant, like, black amorphous looking ship shows up and starts firing down upon the Blackhawks team on the ground. So they're trying to draw fire away in their own ship, and it sends out one dude named Titus, who is on the cover of the issue. Yeah, that way. And he's just, you know, a general, like, badass of like, yes, I will take care of them. The mission must not be compromised, blah, blah, blah. He runs in, just starts buzzsawing through everybody with these weird, like, elbow blades he's got, and is literally killing, like, multiple members of the team. I believe it's Irish is the name. Irish comes in, he's like, oh, I can stop him, and he gets an arm chopped off. Lady Blackhawk comes in, manages to do a little bit of damage and hold her own, but it's still not a winning strike. The dudes in the plane are able to look at their vitals. Irish is plummeting. He's losing his blood and heartbeat fast. Meanwhile, Kunoichi, her body temperature is fluctuating all over the place. Her heart's going crazy, and they don't know what's going on. But Kunoichi gets up, runs over, manages to barehandedly pull off some of Titus's armor. Titus is like, what did you do? And he takes out his own power cell so that he doesn't overheat, which is just enough for Lady Blackhawk to then start unloading on him with a gun. Titus realizes that the only way that Kunoichi could have done that is if she has the nanocytes inside of her. So he starts gloating as if he's won. Lady Blackhawk immediately calls for evac because of how many casualties they've had, and they have now someone that they can interrogate. But the ship, the Eye in the Sky that they had, was captured by the big black amorphous ship that dropped off Titus. So they lost contact with them. So they get a one-time special agreement to hold prisoners. They hold Titus here, and they're like, hey, so you've been here for 14 hours. We have lost our 2 men for our 14 hours. You've also killed a bunch of them, so you better start talking. Lady Blackhawk actually kicked you so hard you had brain damage, but you managed to heal from it. So what is that? And it's like, it's the same thing inside your girl in there. It's like, what's that? Nanocytes. And then immediately Lady Blackhawk takes Kunoichi and is like, you got nano? Did you know this? And she throws him into isolation so that, she's not a threat to anybody around. And Lincoln keeps talking, and it's like, all right, so what do these nanocytes do? We've made nanocytes before. They aren't, they're not that bad. It's like, oh, no, not these nanocytes. These nanocytes literally will end the world, because of course they will. So Kunoichi's in a hospital room, and she's just like, come on, guys, at least let me help. And they're like, no, you have nanobots inside you. You can't be around anything that you could accidentally or not knowingly transmit to some third party. So we've given you basically a backup of the entire internet. You can spend your time with that. And she's like, oh, great, I can look at a bunch of lolcats. Fantastic. She actually says lolcats. This book is amazingly modern, at least for the time of 2011. And she actually sees the video of herself on YouTube. And she's like, wait a minute, that's me. So we cut back to the ship that was taken. They're blinded temporarily so that they can't see where they're going. But, their captors seem to be actually pretty good to them. They're like, oh, yes, you're our prisoners, but, we're not savages. You're prisoners of war. We're treating you right. So they bring them into the city. They restore their sight. And we see that it's this giant underground city. And then they say that you are here to see your future. And that is where the issue leads off. I like this issue, but I can't put my finger on why. It hasn't done anything in particular that I'm like, yes, that's great, that's fantastic. I think it's just an overall fun sort of issue, It's just oh, yep, they have a fight scene, and then it's just setting up the future stuff moving forward with the nanobots. And I like how I feel like Mike Costa actually does. He strikes me as the kind of guy, just based off of this writing, who actually does keep up with meme culture and stuff like that, which is hilarious to see written in here. But no, I'm very much down with this. The art, it does feel weird at sometimes because there are 2 artists, and you can tell some of them follow the same style as the first issue, whereas other panels are definitely the second artist. And it can be a little bit jarring, especially because they stay literally within the same page. It changes, but maybe that's just me. So no, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6. It's not bad by any means. I'm definitely down with Blackhawks, which I am very surprised by. I still have to learn their names, and they're not doing a good job of repeating those names, so that's kind of a flaw on its own. But in terms of art, in terms of story, I'm interested to say the least, so that's got to count for something. Voodoo number 2, written by Ron Marz, art by Sami Basri, additional art by Hendry Prasetya for this issue. We last left off, Voodoo had just killed a federal agent named Evans and then taken his form, shapeshifted into him as she quit the strip club where she works. This issue picks up with Evans back in the bedroom with his partner, Fallon, and they just got done doing something, wink, wink. So they're basically just pillow talking. They're like, oh, we shouldn't have done this. We're partners. If we get caught, we'll both get fired. We'll lose our jobs. But, we don't need to talk about business or anything at all right now. And then this entire time, Voodoo's got some narration boxes just saying, like, I'm a killer, yeah, but, like, I'm doing it for my soldier task, my own planet. She's using some telepathy to basically get into Fallon's brain and pick out some words. The only thing that I think is really worth of any note here is the word Ripley, which we'll get to. But they keep on pillow talking, and she's like, oh, I almost feel bad for doing this, but, this is my job. This is me being a soldier. Her chief tries calling her to get some info on how the mission's going, but Evans, aka Voodoo, gets in the way of it, if you know what I mean. Eventually, Voodoo makes an excuse to go to the bathroom as she picks up on one last word, blackjack. And as she gets into the bedroom, she transforms back into her normal self, not the green body, but like the Voodoo, the Priscilla body. I'm going to say Priscilla Kitane is this normal body. So into her Priscilla body, and she grabs some clothes, she bails out the window as Fallon calls back the chief, and she gets word that her partner was found dead in the strip club, and she's like, wait, that's impossible. Oh shit. And she runs to the bathroom, gun drawn, but Voodoo's already gone. We cut back to the strip club where Evans is dead, and she's just doing a little bit of an investigation on it. She's talking to one of the guys there, saying like, okay, we've got a team on her. There's no way they're going to get away from her, so just sit back and relax and let them do their job. So we cut back to Voodoo. She's just walking down the street. Some guy starts hitting on her. And then the guy notices some red dots appearing on Voodoo's chest, and she's like, what's that? He's hit with a tranq dart. She's hit with another one. She tries to escape, and there's these like Power Rangers looking guys all standing around called Black Razors. They're making sure that they don't let Voodoo out of their sight. Voodoo transforms into her green monstrous form and starts slashing and tearing at all of them as we get like a suit up sequence for Agent Fallon. Finally, we get the big guy to arrive. His name is Blackjack. And Blackjack shows up and he's like, you guys are having trouble with this. This is nothing. And he fires off some energy beams. She manages to dive into an old abandoned hotel. But there's no escape route for her. There's no one that she can transform into. The only person in there is her. So Blackjack's like, all right, I'm going in. And then as he's about to go in, Agent Fallon shows up and is like, she made this personal with me. I'm the one going in. I'm your superior. Get out of my way. And Blackjack's like, okay, fair enough. And we specifically get the notice that the safe word to know that Agent Fallon is Agent Fallon is Ripley. So she enters into the building. There's a whole bunch of mirrors in this hotel, just, for the sake of, oh, who is she? Does she look like anybody else? Blah, blah, blah. But basically, it's just a banter back and forth, more so from Fallon to Voodoo trying to bait her out into the open. Finally, when she does, a fight breaks out between the two, and Fallon starts making some deductions about like, oh, you went to the bathroom, and you also look like yourself. Is there a limit to your shape-shifting? And Voodoo's like, I'm just trying to complete my mission the same as you guys. But in the end, Fallon gets the upper hand, has a gun trained on Voodoo, shots are fired, and Fallon makes her way out, saying Ripley, and steps out, and she's like, she's in there, she's dead, get a team on her, I need some air. And she walks off, as the real Fallon then comes out immediately afterwards. It's like, did she come back? Did you get her? And Blackjack's like, God damn it. So it's the next morning. Voodoo's at a diner and just making some light conversation with one of the waitresses, being like, yeah, I'm a long way from home, had to learn how to take care of myself. Good to have a few tricks up your sleeve. You never know what's next. As the final panel teaser image is Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, just around, like he's in space. It's not even that he's like outside the diner. It's just a picture of Kyle. So that's the tease, I guess. I guess that's what we're doing. I still really like this. I'm still really a fan of this. I didn't expect to, but it's doing a good job setting up the I don't want to say rivalry, but this cat and mouse game between Voodoo and Agent Fallon, and I don't think that it's over quite yet. I'm not sure how I feel about Kyle Rayner showing up in the next issue. It seems, I don't know, I don't want to say fan servicey because this whole book is fan servicey. It just seems kind of out of nowhere. I get she's an alien, but this seems so completely separate from everything else. I'm sure they'll work him in well enough. It just feels a little off. But no, I like the stuff with, they introduced Blackjack, completely new character as far as I'm aware, in a nice convincing way, even if they didn't use him to his fullest potential. They had a nice arc there with Fallon and how she's dealing with the complete invasion of privacy that Voodoo just pulled off. So no, it's a good story, good written. I really can't complain about the art at all. It's fantastic the whole way through. I didn't even notice where the additional art was. It might be Kyle Rayner at the end, but I couldn't tell you either way. So no, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. It's good. I definitely would say check it out. The only reason I'm not rating it higher is that I'm still not entirely sure where we're going with this. Like, what's the main draw of the arc going to be? Is it focusing on Fallon more? Is it focusing on Voodoo more? That will decide whether or not it gets a higher or lower rating. But right now, 6.5. I highly recommend checking it out. Teen Titans number 2, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Brett Booth. We last left off with Red Robin and Wonder Girl kind of sort of teaming up, and Superboy being sicked on the Teen Titans, sort of kind of maybe. I don't know. This issue. Okay, so Kid Flash is sitting in a cell after, I guess, the firefighting incident thing. He is talking so much. I can't even begin. It's just nothing. It's like at least 25 speech bubbles and narration caps. Anyway, he's trying to think of a way out as he's just talking about his own name and stuff like that. And a guy named Danny, who's in the cell next to him, is talking like, "Hey, Kid Flash, you gonna find your way out soon?" And he's like, "Yep, I'm just working out the kinks." But he has no idea what he's doing. Cut to Cassie and Red Robin are in West Hollywood. They're getting dinner and they're just chatting. But like, panel number 1 of this page, our first introduction, is Cassie telling Tim, "Hey, my eyes are up here, and by the way, yes, they are real." And I'm already done with this issue. This is page 2. So they're talking about like, "Hey, so why haven't you been attacked again? Like, yes, they attacked you that one time, but clearly they know who you are. They know where you are. Why are they just leaving you alone?" And she's like, "I don't know. Anyway, here we are, my house. We'll stay the night here. You can sleep on the couch, but you're out in the morning." There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Cut to somewhere in nowhere. I know that sounds weird. Superboy is being shown a bunch of Cassie fighting videos because I guess he's supposed to bring her in. I guess that's actually what his task is, but he genuinely doesn't care about it at all. He's just doing it so he can be free. And then, like every other time Superboy appears, red-haired doctor lady is like, "Oh, he's not ready to go out in the field." And Templar's like, "Well, we're going to do it anyway." And I genuinely couldn't care less anymore. Cut back to Cassie's house. Tim is noting how there's so much archaeological stuff all over the walls, and he's like, "Wow, this looks really authentic," but it couldn't be because that mean you'd be stealing from sites and museums for like years, and that'd be crazy, right? And Cassie's like, "Yeah, crazy. Anyway, I feel kind of weird calling you Red Robin. Do you have like a name?" And he's like, "I do, but I'm kind of connected to a bunch of Bat family people, and giving away my identity would kind of give away theirs, so I'm not going to give you my name." And there's just a pause, a little beat for a moment where they're just seeing like, "Oh, what's going to happen?" And then Cassie's like, "Oh, you've been a good guy today. Anyway, bye." So Tim's a little bit dejected at that point. Next morning, he didn't sleep. He's been researching, trying to figure out who Nowhere could be going after next. He comes up with a video of a humanoid insect person thing that everyone was skittering up the Hollywood sign and straight up into the hills. Tim takes that as his note. He goes to one of the girls who was giving a testimony about seeing the insect thing, and he tracks her down. It's like, hey, so how about you tell me the truth about this creature? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, well, in your video, you said her. She said she skittered up the sign. Everyone else just said it. So you know it's a girl. Also, your twin sister magically transferred to another school recently. So what's going on? Her name is Claudia, and she was explained how her sister, Celine, has been acting strange. And then one day she came home, and Celine was in a cocoon up on her ceiling. And then she came home and she transformed into some insect creature, and she used the name Skitter as like a term of endearment, because who could ever hate something as cute and adorable as something named Skitter? But no, she's truly horrifying. So Tim's like, hey, I can help you and Celine, but you have to promise me that you aren't going to tell anyone about her. And Claudia's like, yeah, no problem, although I did tell a couple of government guys. Is that okay? Tim, of course, says, crap. So cut down into some sewers. Nowhere Mercenary's already there. I don't know if he even has a name, but he keeps on using whenever he says like I, we say I/we. Whenever he says my, he says my/our. Like, he's got a real thing between singular and plural. And it's because his superpower is that he and his brother can teleport like through each other's bodies. Like, I don't know. However you want to try to imagine it, it's probably right. I'm a bit confused by how it works as well. So anyway, Tim Drake, he's down in the sewers as well, and he's like, hey, so I've already beaten up a bunch of Nowhere guys. You're not going to be any different, so let's take the fight. But then he's surprised by the guy's powers, and, it's a bit of a fight. And this entire time, the dude is just speechifying about how, like, Nowhere is the future, and nothing will ever stop it. And they're going to be on the winning side of history. And then Tim won't shut up about how that guy won't shut up, and I just want both of them to shut up. So anyway, apparently then there's a third brother. They're triplets, in fact. And the third brother meets up with Skitter. The other ones teleport to Skitter so that they can extract her. And Skitter just throws them aside. Like, not even a problem, just takes them out. Not kill them, specifically. So Tim's like, well, maybe she's kind of nice. So Tim comes up and he's like, hey, I talked to your sister. I'm here to help. Just be chill. And Skitter is most certainly not chill. And she tries to, like, acid web him with some protrusion out of her mouth. She's genuinely creepy. And as Skitter goes to lunge for Red Robin, Wonder Girl comes in, throws a punch, and it's like, there. Now we're even. For you telling me about the helicopter thing, I'm not going to join your team. And he's like, wow, I could totally fall in love with you. But here's the thing. You have to join my team because Nowhere is gaining more ground every day, and we have to fight against it. And she's like, I'm strong enough to do it on my own. Lose my number. And she leaves. Tim standing in the sewers holding an unconscious Skitter. Then we cut back to Kid Flash. He's breaking out of his cell as the guards come in for feeding time or whatever. He runs over to Danny's cell, sees that Danny is not in there. It's a completely empty cell. So he starts making an escape, but he's distracted by this cell that's just emitting this blinding light. It says Solstice on the door. He looks inside, and there's a girl screaming in pain or agony or something, wishing for help. She's completely covered in black except for just sparks of light that are like leaking out of her. End of issue. This writing is the worst part because nobody knows how to shut up. Everyone, like, the fact that Kid Flash had 25 speech bubbles on the first page should have been my warning, but then it just kept going. Nobody knows how to shut up. Art-wise, it's fine. I know Brett Boot's not for everybody, but I genuinely don't have any complaints. It's pretty middling. It's nothing fantastic, but it's also nothing terrible. It's just down to the writing that's bringing it down for me. And if I have to hear one more goddamn time about how Superboy is not ready to go out in the field, I swear to God, I am never going to read Superboy and give it more than a 4 again. This one, however, I will give a 5. It's fine. It's average. It's right down the middle. I really hope that they figure out that you don't have to fill every bit of empty space with a word balloon. But frankly, I don't think that's going to happen. I, Vampire number 2, written by Joshua Hale Fialkov, art by Andrea Sorrentino. We last left off with something. I remember it being confusing as hell, but good. It was definitely like a vampire horde attack on a bunch of people. This issue picks up in a much more straightforward, linear manner, and I highly appreciate it. So we pick up, this is all told from the story of the female vampire, the one who wants to like change the world and do all that. Her name is Mary Seward, also known as Mary Queen of Blood, as her vampire name. And we just see her morning routine here. She wakes up, she says today's the day, and she's waking up with Andrew Bennett, the other vampire guy. She leaves a rose and a note and then makes her way down the hallway. She decides to get a quick morning snack as a cleaning lady is there. And then the cleaning lady is no longer there. And this entire time, there's this overarching narrative of how the day that she truly became alive was the day that she became a vampire under Andrew. But now it's time for her to take yet another step forward and begin her real purpose in life. So she goes down. Now it's 25 minutes ago. Before it was 45 minutes. 25 minutes ago, there's just all these vampires all gathered in the subway station. And one guy is trying to get order, and Mary shuts down the entire crowd. The guy gets order, and he's like, all right, we've been kept in the shadows. We've been subservient. Now is our time. We're here to face the enemy of mankind. And Mary interrupts, and it's like, no, they are no enemy. They're an ant, and we are elephants. Like, they will go down. Some of you will die, but that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. For they are our food, and we are the dominant race now. Hooray for vampires. 20 minutes ago, they start filling up the street and causing general chaos and panic. 5 minutes ago, Andrew Bennett's on the scene, and he has already taken out tons of them. And then now, they were attacking that group of people in the subway from the last issue, and Mary's just marveling over the fact of how fantastic Andrew is at just killing them all. Like, despite the fact that it's going against her plans, she's so into it. And there's just good fight scenes, them blowing out that stuff. Finally, Mary comes in, bashes his head against the wall. They have a little thing. Mary just yells at him, why won't you join us? And he's like, because you're letting innocents die, and I'm not going to do that. And she says, too late. Tries to take a bite out of him. He does a little phasing thing. More fighting. They turn into wolves and fight each other for a bit. Finally, they manage to get Andrew held by his neck or whatever, and they've got him all held down. And Mary's like, look, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna fight you anymore. This is it. And she comes up with a sword, walks up to him and she's like, look, we're not the monsters. We're freedom fighters. We're just preserving our own race. And Andrew's like, well, okay, what about those people you just slaughtered in there for no good reason? It's like, humans slaughter each other for no good reason all the time. War, like poverty, all these terrible things, crusades, holocausts, like, humans are far worse than we are because at least we're doing it with purpose. They do it because they're bored. And Mary says, like, look, I promised I wouldn't give you another chance, so bye. And she walks off telling all the minion vampires to kill him. But she knows that they won't succeed. Like, it's perfectly self-aware of. He's way too, like, great of a killer for any one of them to take him down. So he'll kill most of them. Some of them will escape. And word will spread for not only is he a coward for not joining in the movement, but he's also a traitor to all of vampire kind. And therefore every vampire in the world is going to be gunning for him. So somebody eventually is going to be able to take him out. And that's Mary's plan all along. So her name is Mary Queen of Blood as of today. She'll be the ruler of the entire filthy planet. What did you do this morning? I love this book. So much of it is told in the art. Like, I just say, and they fight some more, but, like, It's so well done. I can't complain anything at all about Sorrentino's art. It's fantastic. And writing-wise, like, I know last issue I said was really confusing, but this one really pulled it all together. Like, because it's just a linear story. It wasn't like, here's then, here's now, here's whenever, with no idea as to when now is. This one, it literally says, like, this was 45 minutes ago, this is 25 minutes ago. It keeps it perfectly in lockstep of here's exactly where we are. And I appreciate that so much more. But I feel like if I read the story and then go back and read chapter 1, it's going to make so much sense of, like, where everything falls into place. But no, I genuinely, I did not expect to like this book going into this show. I thought it would just be one of those things I just kind of glance over. But the art, man, it's so moody. And there's a good, like, probably like 3 full pages in this book with absolutely no words on it. Like, Fialkov trusts Sorrentino to get the point across so much that he's not even putting a single text box on any of it. And it works. Like, he does the job. I have no complaints at all about this book. If I had to make up a complaint, I would say my only issue is that because of how dark and grimy and, like, gritty it is, sometimes I lose track of, like, which character is supposed to be which. Like, I can't tell which one is Andrew and which one is Mary. But that's, if that ever happens, it's almost immediately resolved in the next panel. And then I'm just like, oh, okay, so that was who that was. It's not anything where I'm like, hold on, who was that for that entire sequence? So no, it's not even a real complaint. It's just a solid series. If you have any ability to check this out, I'd highly suggest so. Maybe it'll shit the bed later on, but as it stands right now, fantastic. I'm giving this one a 8.5. What more do I need to say? It's really, 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 really good. Done. Justice League Dark number 2, written by Peter Milligan, art by Mikkel Janin. We last left off with, I don't know, pretty much like the team getting together. It's hard to say exactly where we left off. Madame Xanadu had a vision of the end of the world. There, that's the final page. This issue picks up with Zatanna. She is driving her motorcycle through a city. She comes around a turn and sees an entire city block just overrun with vines and, like, magical giant bugs, and just a bunch of corpses all on the street being preyed upon by these bugs. And over one of the overturned car radios, she hears Enchantress, the witch specifically, calling out to Zatanna, and it's just like, I'm going to get you, Zatanna, for what you've done, all the evil you've done. And Zatanna tries using a spell to get Enchantress to reveal herself, and she's like, okay, well, my spell's not working. And she's like, oh, I'm stronger than you, and I'm totally going to wrap you up in the dark and crush you and freeze you, and meh. So this freaks Zatanna out. She starts running away as this huge just veil of darkness comes in after them. She casts, like, a protection spell around herself, and the darkness envelops her, but there's just this little ball of light that contains her. And this entire time, Xanadu's talking about, like, how all of these people that we're covering in this book are so extremely damaged and broken and dangerous, not only to themselves, but to people around them. But that's why they just might have a chance, God damn it. So then we cut over to Deadman, and by extension, Dove from Hawk and Dove, aka Dawn Granger, I believe. Dove is sitting in a bar, just enjoying the music. And a dude walks up and he's like, excuse me, is this seat open? He's like, actually, I'm waiting for somebody. He's like, I know, it's me, Deadman, possessing the body of this hot-looking guy. And so they, like, flirt for a little bit, and Deadman specifically is like, oh, well, let's pretend like we're high schoolers, just, all bashful and shy and whatever. And they just flirt for a while until finally Boston just skips the foreplay and is just like, so what do you say you and I get out of here? Because I got a body and we can totally do this now. And Dawn's like, are you serious? You do understand how awful that is, right? Like, ignoring the non-consent aspects of it, I don't want to sleep with another dude, Boston. He's like, it's not another dude. It's me, just in another dude's body. But before they can really get too much into it, the significant other of the dude that Boston possessed finds out and slaps him upside the head. Apparently he was married and Boston just happened to take off the ring. So Dawn is rightly pissed by this, but Boston takes his wife home out of the bar and takes her home. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We cut to Constantine, who just got out of a bar fight, and he's like, all right, cool. I need to stumble back to my hotel. I am in intense pain. Oh, look at that. I've been stabbed. Need to make sure I don't bleed out. Because the whole point of this was I need to be in pain and in danger. That's why, because that makes it easier to do my form of magic. So he sews himself back up, and his whole thing that he wants to do is, I guess, find Zatanna. But he needs... I don't know. He needs to be beaten up for some reason in order to do that. And also he has a hair that belongs to Zatanna, and also he makes sure to say one of her eyelashes, because that's not weird at all. So then he starts some divination spell, but then we cut away from him back to Deadman and Dawn. Deadman shows up at Dawn's door and he's like, look, I took her home, I made sure they were okay, and I left. Nothing happened. And Dawn's like, oh, I'm supposed to believe that? And he's like, I don't care what you believe. Look, we need to figure out how to do this. He's like, look, I know, I get it, but you can't blackmail me like this, blah, blah, blah. And there's a knock at the door, and it's June Moon, a.k.a. the human half of Enchantress, as I think we saw in the last issue. So this was just what was happening before June Moon showed up at their door. Basically, the whole reason she was looking for Deadman was she wants somebody to go in and see if Enchantress is still inside of her, because she still feels like the Enchantress is there, but the Enchantress doesn't really let June out this much, so she feels like something must be wrong or something or another. So for some reason, Deadman possessing June makes Dawn uncomfortable, so she leaves the room. Deadman goes inside of June, and then we cut to just shortly afterwards. Dawn's out on the balcony. June, being possessed by Boston, comes out and it's like, hey, it's me. Look, I don't see any witch in here, but she's really messed up, and there's like this nursery rhyme going on in her head about a crooked man and a crooked mile. So yeah, she's not good, but there's no witch, so that's something. And Dawn's like, why are you still in her body? And he's like, oh, look, I just wanted to talk. I wanted to say, I understand it must be weird to sleep with another dude. Like, I didn't think about that. I won't push that button anymore. By the way, did I ever tell you how much I love you? As he's in June's body, giving her the eyes. And kudos to Jan, and the disgust on Dove's face is just priceless. Cut to the next page. She's driving away, and June's like, I have a little memory of something about typical male fantasy. What's that about? And Boston's like, don't worry about it. Anyway, there's no witch inside you. And she's like, I don't know. It still feels like there's a witch inside me. And now that you helped me, she's probably really pissed off at you, too. So you're probably in danger. Cut back to Dove, wherever she's driving. The radio starts spewing out the same thing that it did towards Zatanna. It's like, you took away my human half, and I'm going to hurt you for it, blah, blah, blah. Dawn transforms into Dove, and she just feels this darkness and the freezing and everything enveloping her. And she just wants the radio to shut up. Cut back to Zatanna, who is still in her protective bubble, but apparently no one, like all the people that she saw dead on the street weren't actually dead. It was just an illusion. So she's just in a trance, sitting cross-legged in the street, and people around her like, I think she's dead. Oh, geez, someone call an ambulance. And then we get back to Xanadu, who's actually talking to Enchantress inside of like a snow globe, and it's like, look, I've been reading the cards, and I've seen that all these people are gathering against you. They're dangerous. You have to go on the offensive. Destroy them all. So Xanadu is supposedly against the Justice League Dark? I don't know. Seemed like a last page twist for the sake of the last page twist, but the rest of it I really, really enjoyed. Art-wise, can't really fault Janet anywhere in there. That whole sequence with Dove and June and Boston was, just chef's kiss. Fantastic how that all played out. Writing wise, it's also good. It feels like it's a little bit slow right now, So I'm hoping that it picks up the pace just a little bit in getting everything moving, but I have no doubt that it will. I'm not judging it on what it may or may not fail as. I'm judging it for what it is. It's just a little bit slow right now, but we're still in issue 2, so I can't fault it that much. Overall, I'm going to give this a 7.5. It's very good, very worth checking out, if only for just the attempted threesome that Boston tried to get going. Like, bravo on that one. But no, it's a good book. I would definitely recommend checking it out. So, yeah. Legion, Secret Origin number 1, written by Paul Levitt's, art by Chris Batista. This is a companion piece to the Legion of Superheroes / Legion Lost stories, just giving secret origins as to how does the Legion come to be, which is good for me because I don't know. I genuinely have no clue. I just assumed it always was and always will be. So, this issue picks up with... They describe the past, I guess. They say how the United Planets has been reconnecting Earth with its former colonies. We have, searched throughout the planets and all that. And then a star cruiser arrived on a planet called Anatrom, which was thought to be living a self-sufficient life. And then, oops, it's an entire genocide of the entire planet. And they don't know who did it because war like this has not existed in the United Planets in, multiple lifetimes for humans. But, hey, there are other aliens with longer lifespans that have deeper grudges. And they come across this machine that they don't recognize. And they bring it back for some investigation. And they're like, it's some sort of something. Maybe it's a weapon, though, so we should probably have it looked at. And they're like, yes. Let's send it to the best tech guy. So they send it to the best tech guy. And tech guy's like, all right, cool. So it doesn't have any inputs, doesn't have any outputs. It seems to take on a whole lot of energy and doesn't spit anything out. And it explodes. There's literally a panel of him going, oh my, and then explosion. So they realize they need a little bit of someone more intelligent to look at this, someone who knows what they're looking at. And so they talk to the Kaluans, which are Brainiac's race, and they're like, hey, we need someone to look at it. And it's like, oh yes, you asked for our brightest, and here he is, Brainiac 5, which people are a little bit hesitant at because I guess Brainiac is still kind of a thing, but his name is Quirrell Dox, and they're like, all right, so they plan on bringing him back. Then we get this council that there's so much data that comes into the United Planets. They need a council of 3 people in order to decipher it and see what's good. They have a Kaluan for just the raw data. The a person with foresight and future sight in order to tell what's up, and then a third guy who I don't even know has a name yet. But either way, they're all just talking, and they're like, oh wait, hold on, here's something about some billionaire, millionaire, trillionaire, I don't know how rich he is in the future. He's rich dude stepping off of a plane, and he's got these 3 kids with him, and the future sight person's like, whoa, something's happening here. And they're planning on killing the trillionaire. Other people are planning on killing the trillionaire. And these 3 kids, one of them senses that he's going to be killed. And then the other one uses magnetic powers to take away their guns. And then another one zaps them. And this is Saturn Girl, Cosmic Boy, and Lightning Lad. And the Foresight one's like, these kids are going to be super important to everything. We need to keep an eye on them. So this council's like, hey, we're the security council. We're telling the director of something, I don't even know what, space police, sure, that this is now in the hands of the United Planet Security Council. Do not interfere with this. And the space police doesn't seem to take that lightly, but I don't know why. They go and talk to RJ Brand, and it's like, so yes, the kids are important. Will you let us look into them and have us work with them and stuff like that? And RJ's like, no, your government's way too interfering. However, if we want to do this, we do it my way. So let's see what the kids can do. Maybe find a new friend or 2 and just trust my intuition in this. And the council's not happy about that, but they deal with it. Quirrell Dox arrives on, I don't think it's Earth, but wherever the explosion was. And he's like, all right, whatever. You wanted me to investigate. Let me go investigate. And he goes and he walks over to the device and he does a little bit of investigation on it. And a little spark makes its way off of one of his devices, lands on the device. It explodes again. And everyone's like, oh, God, we killed the smartest being in the universe. But then it's revealed he has a force field on that should not be able to exist. And Brainiac 5's like, it's family secret. Anyway, moving on. So then we see that the three kids have officially formed they're calling themselves Legionnaires. They have costumes and everything like that. And they're officially setting up themselves as a protection team sort of thing. Cut back to Coral Docs, who's still investigating the item. And this girl pops up just out of a rock. And she just starts poking at Brainiac. She's like, oh, hey, my name is Tinya Wazo from Buccellato. That's the only time I'm ever going to say it, and you're never going to get it again. And she's just poking fun at Brainiac. Brainiac manages to drop something on the device again. It explodes again, but she's not harmed by it because she is a phantom lady from a phantom planet who came through a wormhole that showed up nearby. And she's like, by the way, your United Planets are going to be in trouble, so I'm here to kind of warn you about that. The council sees this and they're like, okay, so we need answers as to what she's about. And he's like, well, ignoring her, they're Legionnaires over here. They just got another new member. Or maybe they got 3 of them. That's right. It's Triplicate Girl with the ability to form into 3 bodies. And they're commenting how RJ Brand is like, yeah, no, he wasn't just being grandiose. He is making a legion. But the question is, what are they recruiting for? And that's where we leave off with Triplicate Girl joining the team. I like this intro to the team so much more than I like the actual Legion of Superheroes book because there's 5 of them. I can keep track of 5 of them. There's introduced 1 per page. This is so nice. Why didn't we just do this? I'm sorry. I'm still really pissed off that I couldn't get into the actual Legion thing. I'm much happier with how this is turning out in terms of a Legion intro book. Maybe it's not actually faithful to whatever the Legion has been before Flashpoint. I don't care. I at least am understanding what is going on between each page, and I don't have to memorize 300 names instantaneously. Art-wise, it's good. Nothing really that stand out about it. Feels pretty stock standard. For some reason, Brainiac just feels like he stands out a little bit, but maybe that's just because he's green skinned compared to all the flesh tones. I don't know. But it's fine art. And I don't really have anything to complain with about the writing either. If anything, it's a little vague at times. I'm not the I think narrator, there's narration box every once in a while. We never actually find out who that is throughout this entire story. So maybe that'll be a reveal at the end, maybe something else. All it says is that the third guy who I said didn't get a name on the council is his cussed old human. Whatever that means. So yeah, maybe we'll get a reveal of that later on. I don't know. I don't particularly care as of this issue. But overall, I'm going to give this one a 6.5. It's good. Don't really have much to say about it. I'm just so very happy that I actually understand something to do with the Legion of Superheroes. And that's it. That is all the comic books that were released this week, October 26, 2011, from DC Comics. And I gotta say, looking back on it, I was extremely nice this week. I feel like almost every book I followed up with, I liked it. And I gave it a decent enough score. There were 1 or 2 exceptions, but for the most part, it was pretty good all across the board. Maybe that's on me, though. Maybe I'm just too nice. Maybe I need to start really digging into these comics for the minutia. Being like, how dare you use black ink number 5 instead of number 4. Unreadable. 0 out of 10. We'll see what happens next week. Speaking of next week, let's see what's coming out November 2nd, 2011. We have the number 3 issues of Detective Comics, Batwing, Action Comics, Red Lanterns, Green Arrow, Justice League International, Men of War, OMAC, Stormwatch, Hawk and Dove, Static Shock, Animal Man, and Swamp Thing. Originally on week 1 for this month of October, we also had Huntress and Penguin Pain and Prejudice, and we are getting those, but they're now on week 2, so we just have a basic 13 comic week next week, and I am totally okay with that. But what about you guys? What did you think of this week's comics, next week's comics, or any comics that we're ever going to talk about on this show? Let me know on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That is at DC Comics Podcast. Use the hashtag New52 because for some reason nobody uses that hashtag anymore. It's almost like it's a completely out-of-date concept. Additionally, we have a Patreon. We are Mild Fuzz TV. That is Mild Fuzz TV. I have to pay into it, so do you. If you sign up now, you get a discount of 0%, so hop on that. Anyway, that's it for me, personally. I almost got ahead on doing this, and then I didn't. So, once again, it's about 8 hours before this has to be released, and I'm recording it now. I am the pinnacle of reasonable scheduling. Oh boy, now I'm going to go to bed, and I'm not going to worry about this until I wake up. But until then, always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.